Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the Business Spotlight. I am Scott McMeans with Action Coach, and I am blessed to have Michael DeAloia from Evergreen Podcast on the podcast today. Talk about a little bit of pressure, right? I've got a guy who does podcasts for a living on my
No
podcast.
pressure. Yeah, no
So
pressure.
I'm going to
You
do
know,
my very best to be on my best behavior, but this is not about me. This is all about Michael and Evergreen Podcast. So what I want to do is turn the camera and the microphone over to Michael so he can tell us a little bit about himself, about Evergreen, and we'll start our conversation. So Michael, it's all yours, man. Talk to me.
yeah, I appreciate that, Scott. A little bit about me. Born a Buckeye. I was born in Dayton, Ohio, and I've lived in almost every part of the state, which is great. High school in Dayton, college in Cincinnati at Xavier, and somehow got into Case Western for grad school. It's still a miracle, an unknown how I got in, but I thank the gods above for letting me get accepted into a great institution. And I think Case was the one area where my intellectual curiosity was just fed all the time. And, there's a standing rule at Case that you can attend any class on campus as a guest if you wish. And so I was going to the Cleveland Institute of Music and the Cleveland Institute of Art because they have affiliations with Case and sitting down in class. It was just a wonderful two
Wow.
years as I was getting my MBA and, of course, all the cultural institutions at Case. And so once I graduated from Case, I fell in love with Cleveland. I decided to stay and had some really wonderful successes early in my career with National City Venture Capital, then Ernst and Young. Um, Bought my first company, which was proverbially a dog with fleas, with mange. It was when you're young and you don't have a lot of money, the best deals aren't necessarily presented to you through the business broker community. And I bought a very troubled coffee chain with a friend of
A,
mine and a
a
handful of investors.
coffee. I'm sorry, it was a coffee chain. Okay.
It was so. This was just prior to Starbucks becoming a full-fledged national chain. My friend and I saw this happening because we were both in the venture capital industry and had worked with multiple funds in me at National City. He was at Key Capital at the time. And we thought, well, we can get this, a regional chain, something small, build it, sell it off. Because Starbucks is going to increase enterprise value, then we should probably do it. And we just happened to buy just the absolute worst managed, chain. It was based out of Fairlawn, Ohio, and 6 units. At one time, it had been 12, so it was already on the downward, the back nine, so to speak. Probably should have been closed years prior. And, we obviously required that, and it didn't go well. I mean, I think the first 9 months we used our MBA knowledge to improve it, but without the right working capital and strong, steady investment base. Now we had investors, but it just wasn't enough to turn it around. And so we closed it and I went back into the corporate world. And I early on had a lot of great success. I joined another accounting firm in their capital markets group. Started a tech company called Blue Bridge Networks, which is still around. It's downtown on East 12th and Euclid here in Cleveland, Ohio. And then I got probably my biggest break. I was asked by Mayor Campbell to join the city of Cleveland as the tech czar, which is not a title that I gave myself, but rather the press gave it to me. And
Let's leave that.
yeah, right. But I always say, once you get a royal title, you always hold the royal title. And I was responsible for all the economic development of the technology trades at the city level. And so my job was to bring as many tech companies into the city as
Mhm.
possible. And it was really the start of, this new renaissance that Cleveland's been on. People started to really believe that downtown Ohio City, right, were the places to be. It's a live, work, play environment. And we had a lot of success. I think we moved eventually 36 tech companies into the city, over 1,000 new employees, so a good tax base for the city. Buildings started to get rehabilitated. I could play both sides. I could give incentives to the companies coming in, but I could also give incentives to the building owners to help build out that tech space and do what they wanted. So it was just a really wonderful um, environment. I left. She lost the election. I stayed on 2 more years, and then I was recruited out by a tech company. And this is where I started to have some difficulties in my career. I was in a bad personal relationship at the time, and it had gone, and after the city, just in quick succession, 3 jobs that were progressively shorter in duration. I was fighting a little bit of depression, to be quite frank with you. And I always call this my years in the wilderness. And I think everybody goes through this. I'm not trying to position myself as a woe is me. It was a learning experience. It really set me up for the success that I think me and my family are enjoying today. It was a hard period, and it wasn't until I met my wife in 2013. So this is from 2009 to 2013. I struggled
4 years.
tremendously.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a rough 4 years, man. It's like going to the pinnacle of your profession and being in the news every day, working with newsmakers, making things happen on a large scale in a city that merits a rebirth, to just seemingly failing at everything you do was just a real tough period
Hmm.
of time. And could have used your coaching experience back in 09, 13. But yeah, I met my wife, and around the time I met my wife, and this is a true story, I had totally forgotten that I'd made an investment in a tech company here in Cleveland. It was a company that started around at Case called Onesys, and they were, yeah, they needed some cash for payroll or something. They were short of working capital. And a friend and I gave them, I think the total was like 6 grand. And in exchange, I got a percent of the company. I don't remember signing any paperwork. I don't remember being on an operating agreement. But as I was meeting my wife, I got a phone call from the CEO, one of the young guys who started the company. It's like, hey, we're selling the company. I'm like, oh, dude, that's awesome, man. That's fantastic. I'm really happy and proud of you guys for doing that. It's like, well, we need your vote. And I'm like, what the hell you need my vote for? He's like, well, you own, part of the company.
X% of the company. Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely, I do. Yes. What do you need me to vote on? He was like, well, we're selling to Living Social. And I thought, man, that's a big name. Fantastic. How much? 20 million. I was like, you've got my vote. Yeah, absolutely. Have.
Go right ahead.
And it was like the first thing that kind of paid off for me in a while, and I was feeling great. And I just met my wife, and soon thereafter we found out we were pregnant, or she was, and and I used that money to buy another company with a few other gentlemen here in town, and we did a roll up, and we sold that off too. Once we sold that company, so we're talking about like 2016 at this point. We had our daughter. I was kind of hanging out here at the house. My wife is an attorney by trade, and she just made partner. And she was like, maybe it's time you went back to work. And to be honest with you, I was like, I'm going to ride this out as long as I can without having to go back to work. We got cash in the bank. I'm good. I'm really good. And I told her, I was like, listen, the only way I would go back to work right now is if I became CEO of a company. And I haven't put out any feelers, any message that I was looking. I'm not quite sure people even knew I sold this company and was not doing anything. But I put it out in the ether, like I want to be a CEO. And strangely enough, 2 days later, I remember this was a Wednesday when she and I were talking. That Friday, a friend of mine called and he was like, hey, I just interviewed for this podcast company. And I told him I'm not the guy, but I know the guy and you're the guy. And you have to call them today. They're looking, they want to talk to you.
Wow.
And I did. It was a family office that had started this podcast company literally in the main principal's home, and they were looking for some executive management. The founder and owner of the family office was like, listen, she was like, I just adopted 4 kids. I'm adopting 4 more, but I think we've got an idea here with this podcast company, and you need to run it, or someone does. And I may not be here. I may be in Russia, and Kakistan and all these places, adopting these kids. And when I first started, I was like, how the hell is this going to work? If we're in short of payroll and I got to call the family, who am I talking to? Like, how are we going to
Right.
do this? You're not around. But it worked. And so I inherited at the time, I became CEO of Front Porch People. That was the original brand name of what is now Evergreen. It was myself and two interns. We had just rented a old dental office here in Lakewood, Ohio. I live in Lakewood and the family office is based in Lakewood and the principal lives here too. She's just a wonderful partner and we've built a really strong relationship. But at the time, it was just me, two interns in an old musty office here in Lakewood. That first year, 2017, we got 4 shows out, 17,000 downloads for the year. And to give some context of growth, today we've got 25 employees spread out Ohio, California, Puerto Rico. We'll end up doing 360 shows this year, about 34 million downloads. So exponential growth. We're in the process of acquiring a company out in LA, which would give us a very coveted LA address, an entirely new sales team, double revenues, will double downloads. So we're in just a great place right now of combining. Well, Evergreen is already considered a fast growing brand in the podcast space. This group in LA shares very similar characteristics to us. So you're going to have really two dynamic brands. What I hope is a strong executive team to kind of lead the charge. To date, we've raised a shade over $10 million to kind of keep this thing stocked with rocket fuel. So we're in a great place right now and we experienced a lot of growth. And as you know, growth always highlights your weaknesses in the most profound,
Yes,
profound
it
way.
does.
Uh, so, I mean, that's the story. Obviously married, got a kid, live in Lakewood. I focus on two things right now: my family, which is very important to me. I'm very dear to my wife because she's gotten me through a very challenging time when we met, and
Yeah.
I've enjoyed nothing but success as partners. And then my kid, my daughter, who I just love and adore. So I focused on the family and the business. I've been very blessed by given this opportunity with the family office to run this company. And it's been a lifelong goal of mine to run an emerging growth company. And to get that chance is, you got to consider yourself lucky. And when you get
Hmm.
lucky, make it work.
Wasn't it funny, Michael, how luck seems to follow the right mindset, right?
You
You
make your
you
own
t-
luck. You really
we,
do.
you told me a story, and I just want to give you a little kudos, right? The years in the wilderness that you spent was the time that really shaped who you wanted not to be anymore. You met somebody who changed your mindset towards things. You found a fortunate situation where you were able to sell off a company that you didn't even know you were part of. And you had a financial security that allowed you to do certain things with a family. And all of a sudden, all right, I'm going to go do something different. And you picked a space that you know well because it's a technology that you can get your teeth around and a supportive person that owns it but doesn't have the time but trusts you enough to do it. You could not ask for a better scenario for somebody that has the right mindset of I'm only going to do this if I want to do it, I enjoy doing it, and I have the support. You've got all of that. And I'm blown away because we're going to talk about how did you go from 4 people in 2017 or four people in 2017 and a handful of podcasts to 360 different shows in a year, 25 employees across 3 states or 2 states in a territory, and you're about to acquire new business. There's a lot going on. How did you get there? How did you go from 2017, 7 years later, you have grown your workforce by sixfold? How did that happen?
Yeah. It, one is the team. We've this was a great opportunity for me when I got the job through the family office. They really relied on my Rolodex to bring in people.
Mm.
to fill out certain roles. The executive team, our chief content officer, we still consider the rookie and newbie, and he's been with us for 5 years. The executive team finish each other's sentences. We have a lot of respect and admiration for one another. I can't say that we're super best friends or we hang out all the time. I don't think that's necessary per se,
Mhm.
but we're very close. We're very attuned to each other's strengths and weaknesses. I mean, we can pick each other up. I think it's important. We're not backstabbers. We're not trying to pull other people down. It's not to say that we've had issues that we've had to work through on skill sets, temperament, and strategy.
Mhm.
That's always a part of it. I would tell you, having gone through a number of startups and corporate environments, hubris and arrogance are typically the reasons why a lot of these things fail. And we try and check that at the door. But it's been the team and not just the executive team, which I love hanging out with the executive team. I'll tell you, as I'm winding down my life many, many, many years from now, I will always fondly remember the time that we took, just to talk and gab in my office or in the hallway or in the conference room. Those moments where, the shields are down a little bit and you're just talking friend to friend about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those will always be the most cherished moments.
Yeah.
Um, to the staff is just, they're really young. They don't know what they don't know, but they're intellectually curious. They're happy. They're healthy. And all of that works together for a great working environment where people are just every day is a new challenge and we want people to be challenged.
I
Um,
find it interesting, Michael, and I don't know if you did this by design or not, but one of the things that you used to describe yourself as a Buckeye from Dayton, Ohio, was somebody with a high level of an intellectual curiosity. And that's what led you to Xavier. That's what led you to Case Western. And now you surround yourself with a bunch of young, talented people that have a high intellectual curiosity. I don't think that's coincidence at all. I think that is something that is the culture that you're creating at Evergreen, right? It's
the
the
culture I'm glad you brought that up. The, when I was at Case, let me just tell you a quick story. You're when you're in MBA school, especially during that time, so this is like 94 to 96, the focus was on the hard sciences, finance, accounting, marketing, which is a lot of science, math, and numbers. I immediately dismissed the leadership and the organizational behavior classes because, that's the stuff.
Mhm.
It's light, it's airy.
It's
What the,
soft stuff. It doesn't mean
yeah,
anything. It's science. I am who I am.
absolutely.
Yep.
That's right. But it's not. All the other hard sciences you can outsource or find an expert to come in-house or out of house to fix those problems. We've recently had an issue where we were growing so fast that administratively and financially that we were really behind the curve. We're considering going out to raise money next year, 10, 15 million. Our financial house was not in order, meaning the bookkeeping was such that all the numbers were to the penny accounted for, but in the wrong buckets.
Oh,
So we had to get an outsourced CFO, and we brought in a controller and a bookkeeper, and we worked through that problem. But back to the cultural thing, early on, as we're bringing people on, we noticed that if we brought people in from a large organization that had a lot of infrastructure, those were the people who didn't last very long. But those who are entrepreneurially mindset or their first job out of school where they just didn't know how an organization worked, but we're
yeah.
always asking the questions why. It was almost like sometimes, especially when we're in Lakewood, because we had a smaller footprint, like, these younger people, like, they're like, kid, like, why? Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? And at some point, you're just like, all right, enough with you become a dad mode person, right? Like, just give me some time to think. I need a beer. But I loved that interaction. I loved the fact that they were asking questions about how to do their job the best way possible, what was happening in the industry, how can we make a better show? And that made all the difference in the world. We now, in our HR review of people, we're looking for Are they entrepreneurial or entrepreneurial? Are they intellectually curious? Are they asking the right questions? We don't want to take over the interview process. We want them to take over the interview process. We want them to expose who they are intellectually and emotionally in these interview sessions. And it's really, I dig the culture. As we
That's
get larger, you're going to struggle with keeping that. And that's what I'm really nervous about now is, we got 25, 26 people. We're adding another 5 with this acquisition. There's another acquisition we're looking at. It's another 5 people. We're all spread out. How do you keep this
yeah.
intoxicating environment and an environment where people can consistently move up the ranks, whatever rank they may want to move up to? That's going to be, I think, a future challenge for us. But I really love where we're at right now with the team.
Well, I will tell you this, keeping the culture, that's your job. As the head of the organization,
Yeah.
it's up to you to keep that going, because as you go, they go. And you've already identified the hard sciences, you can outsource those. The soft stuff, it's yours and yours only. And you're the one who has to keep beating that drum to the right beat, right? If you start changing tempo, what's going to happen? They can't dance anymore because they're not used to that. Yeah. So you don't want to stop drumming. You want to change, you don't want to change pace, but you don't want to stop drumming because you want to keep people to stay on beat with you, right? That's kind of the mission. That's kind of what you're trying to accomplish by having this diverse team across all these different locations. It's on you to keep that culture going.
It's a heavy burden, and I'm really attuned to the magic brew that we do have, the magic mixture. And I do carry that responsibility. And in a ways, because I want people to be happy. I want them to be engaged. We work diligently not to have adversarial relationships internally. It's like, if we got it, listen, if people are human, they're going to have
Yeah.
at times, right? So how can we solve this as adults and talk it through and all those little things, the pixie dust. But I do accept, Scott, my responsibility for that.
And clearly, Michael, clearly over 7 years, you've done what is necessary to grow at the capacity that you've grown without losing who you are as an individual and growing that individual culture to a group of 25 people that want to be there. That's one of the things that I think a lot of business owners, in particular small business owners, they need to understand the equitable trade that happens between somebody exchanging their time and talent for a wage. Easy contractual obligation, right? But what they don't buy into or what they don't understand is there's a stronger buy-in beyond a wage. It's, do I wake up in the morning and want to go to work? Or do I wake up in the morning because I need to go to work? Right? If you can have a group of people that follow you into a storm because they know you will have their back and you will have theirs, or they'll have yours, that's a great relationship to have in a working environment. You've described you want people happy, engaged, no adversaries, and adult relationships only. That's a solid culture to actually cultivate for people to want to buy into. And it's rare that people have a culture that the entire organization buys into. So I don't know if you have a number of fringe employees, because it happens no matter where you are, whether you're GE or Johnny's Landscaping, right? It happens no matter what. But if you can control the controllables by allowing people to do the things they're supposed to do within that culture that you create, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can do anything.
You talk about the fringe employee or the employees that are necessarily not, they may not be in the right place. I mean, and every company has this hurdle that we historically have had issues. We identify the problem early.
Yeah.
There's someone who's not working, and we kind of kick the can. We try and work around it. The last year and a half, 2 years, because we had 2 employees 5 tool, athletes
Mm-hmm.
who signed the big contract and then batted 220. You know what I mean? And just hit the field, and it immediately dismissed expectations.
Mhm.
And yeah, we let those two individuals go, and I think it was the right course of action. But lately, we've worked hard in identifying now, like, who are the C players? And this is a hard discussion to have sometimes.
100. It is
And
probably the
allocate like
hardest.
these people, right? You're spot identifying them, and then going to them and saying, hey, listen, it's not working the way we all want it to. So we have two choices here. Like, we're willing to work with you and get you to the B level, A level, where you should be doing. We've recently done this with a salesperson who cultural fit, everybody loves him, dynamic personality, just not carrying the weight that we
Mhm.
had, expectations. And to his credit, no excuses. Like, I am not living up to expectations. I want to stay here. This is how we're going to work. We wrote up a 90-day plan. I think the sophistication and I think also the evolution of being able to identify these are the people that we love and respect, but they're just not at this point in time where we need them on the team, and expressing that to them. I would have to say this was hard for me. It was a revolutionary point for us in our makeup, but it's changed the conversation of how people are doing their job and how they actually respect us back. Hey, you came to me and you told me I'm not. They didn't take it personally. You think that they would. I'm sure that they did, but not in a way like, I'm out of here. Like, this is bull crap. No, they were like, you're
Yeah.
right. I got to be an adult about this. I got to fix the pattern of my work ethic and my work product. And that's all part of the culture. And I have a lot of concerns as CEO of a fast growth company. We're always outpacing our capital. We don't have enough people for the opportunities that we have at hand, right?
Mhm.
All the problems that you have when you're just growing 100%, consistently over, multiple years. But it's the culture, man. It's that flame and that flicker of the soul that is, I want to keep fresh and invigorating, to the point where we recently brought in an outsourced HR group to help us navigate through these issues of how do we get C players to B and A players? How do we
Yeah.
identify the intellectually curious? How do we have a bullpen of people out there that we've identified that if there's ever a chance to work with them, to bring them in? I think really some forward thinking stuff for such a small company, but that's what you need to do to grow and to get to scale.
Well, if you're not thinking outside the box is going to strangle you. That's
No,
just the
no.
way, right? So you have to think progressively. And I give you credit for outsourcing a hard science, right? HR, let's go find somebody to help us because this is something that is near and dear to who we are as a business and what's going to help us move forward. We have to go find help. That to me tells me more about you as a leader than it does anything else. You're humble enough to know you're not the smartest person in the room, but go find somebody who is and help you. That's in essence, you're a very coachable person. You're a CEO that has an empathetic heart and a scientific mind. You know what you're doing.
Well, I love the people that, I really do have a lot of admiration, respect, and love for the people that are on the team right now. And especially this group that we're in the process of acquiring, got to learn and know them a lot. So I appreciate those kind words. It means a lot to me because, you know, uh, getting the MBA and working in venture capital and banking, it's always scientific, but it's not, man. It's an endeavor of people. It's not an
Yeah.
endeavor of numbers or science. I want us to sell. I mean, listen, we're also very honest in where we're going. And we've told everyone from the beginning, like, at some point, there's going to be an exit. And I don't know what that means for any of us,
Yeah.
but that's where we're going. And the family office needs a return, right? For their money that they're putting in.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes, they do.
that's the expectation. And so everyone, as long as we're open and honest, I think we'll be fine. And that's hard for me.
It's incredibly hard because you have listen. I listen to a lot of sports radio, and they talk a lot about how the Browns are going to do this year, whatever, and they
Yeah.
dump in these simulations. And I give Dustin Fox tons of credit because he steps up and says, "You can do all the simulations you want. We're dealing with human beings, And somebody is either going to go above their skis and play it way better than they ever thought, and somebody that you think is an all-star is not going to have a good year. So stop with the simulations and let the human beings play. With that in mind, take that into the business world. No matter who you think is your A player, let them play. And if they're not playing well, help them. If your bad player or a player is not playing up to performance, get them help. If they're exceeding, keep feeding that beast. That's the
Yep.
only way to do it.
I completely agree. Listen,
Hey, I
there's some
hate to do
special
this,
talent.
but we've got 30 seconds left.
What? Only
Yeah,
30
we've
seconds?
been doing this for a while, so we've got 30 seconds left. Um, any last words?
Any last words? Hey, listen, I'll just do a quick plug for Cleveland. I think the only place on planet Earth we could have grown Evergreen the way that we've grown it with the people that we wanted to do it with is Cleveland. We're like an undiscovered country, yeah, in the United States as a business environment. I really firmly believe
I
that.
love that. I'm a huge Cleveland guy, and I'm so proud to be from the city. Absolutely amazing place.
It
Michael, this
is.
has been great. I thank you.